As you watch the screen, your heart begins to beat faster. There's a fluttering in the pit of your stomach. Your throat is dry. Your palms damp. Suddenly a chill runs down your spine. You clutch the person next to you. You tell yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. But sooner or later, it's time to go home.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Ron.
I'm Lindsay.
I'm Brian.
I'm Corey.
And we are here to talk about Scooby-Doo, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., Matthew Lillard, Linda Cardellini, the voice of Neil Fanning, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., Isla Fisher, and Rowan Atkinson. Written by James Gunn and Craig Titley, based on characters created by Joe Ruby and Ken Spears. Directed by Raga Gosnell, I think that's how you say it. I didn't look it up. Released in 2002 on an $84 million budget, it grossed over $275 million at the box office. Now, this is for our 2023 edition of Shocktober, and as we march on into spooky season, we couldn't do that or review this movie without getting in touch with our good pal, Gory Corey. Corey, welcome back to Film Strip.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell the folks what you've been up to and what you've got coming up?
Yeah, right now I'm writing a book about Jennifer's body that'll be out with Die Books soon, and I also have a movie coming out. It's called Welcome Week. We're very excited about it. It's a horror anthology about the horrors of college.
And if you listen to some of our older episodes, I believe we ran some promo material for that. So
yeah,
I'm glad to see that it's working out pretty well.
Thank you.
So that's always good, and it's great news on the book, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm definitely not jealous or angry.
I can put you in touch with the people.
Oh, but then I would have to actually write the book, and therein lies the problem.
That's been my problem so far, yeah.
If I go over about 6,000 words, it becomes an issue. But yeah, it's always great to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And while we could not have Jay on the show because he's off being a professional, doing professional things, the rest of us were able to get together and do the do, as it were. So, Brian, I was told that you have a little bit of background with this movie. Why don't you let us have it, please?
Well, I got 3 boys, and all 3 boys were into Scooby-Doo, so we own a lot of Scooby-Doo stuff, including this movie and the follow-up, as well as a bunch of the cartoon releases that they put out, the Kiss cartoon, we got, I think, original seasons, Where Are You, Scooby-Doo, or whatever it is. We have original seasons 1, 2, and 3 on DVD. So we're big Scooby-Doo fans in this house.
Awesome. Lindsay, do you have any background with Scooby-Doo?
I do. I saw this movie in the theater when it came out, and I watched the cartoon growing up. And now, again, I think they have the old Scooby-Doo cartoons on Tubi now. So we've been working our way through those recently. But yeah, it was a fun movie then. It is more fun now that I understand all of the jokes.
Corey, I probably should have let you go first since you're our special guest, but you can go next.
No, it's okay. I have a lot of background with Scooby-Doo because it's been like my special interest ever since I was like before I could talk. I watched this movie when I was very, very young, and I watched it over and over and over again, and still do pretty much every year. But also I've watched, I think, every Scooby-Doo property that has come out before 2010. And some after,
nice.
But not all of it.
Yeah, as stuff gets newer and more recent, it gets harder and harder to find out there in the wild world, which is why I'm always thankful for Tubi.
Tubi is the best.
Tubi, if you want to sponsor our show, we always say nice things about you.
Yeah, you're our favorite. Seriously,
they're the streaming platform for the people.
And we get aggressive about people who try to tell us that other streaming platforms are just as good. No, that's a
No.
lie.
No. How could they be?
In fact, Jay and I just leaned onto Tubi to record an episode on Missing in Action, which, Tubi has been our go-to for a lot of these things. And if you go and watch some of the weirder and or more bad 80s things in our archive, all of those are also found on Tubi, especially right now because they've got all the American Ninja movies up. And I'm always trying to promote the glory that is the primary color ninjas. Each one with their different colors, a different ninja specialty, because that's apparently how it worked in 1989. But yeah, I am currently watching the original. We watched the first 2 original seasons of Scooby-Doo with my 4-year-old, who one day decided that she turned to me and said that she wanted to watch a mystery. Now, I had no idea what this meant. I had no idea what she actually wanted to watch. I was like, "Oh, if you want some mystery, then I got you, fam." So I fired up Scooby-Doo, the first 2 seasons on Peacock because apparently they're on Peacock. So, but just those first 2 seasons, and we watched it all the way through. We literally watched the first season like in a day. She just could not get enough. We go eat, come back, go outside, do a thing. She come back in. She would want to watch more Scooby-Doo. So it's been a lot of fun to go back and revisit it. Like Lindsay said, I'm catching a lot of jokes that I didn't catch when I was watching it as a child. She did not watch this movie with me, however, because I thought the monsters were just a little too scary for her at this age. And, I also didn't have much memory of it, so I couldn't do the thing where, hey, look over there and distract her for when the scary things was coming up or whatever. She would probably be fine with it. The scary things are her favorite part of pretty much everything she watches. When she was a baby, we would sit and watch The Last Drive-In on Shudder together. And the first thing I remember her looking at on the TV screen was somebody running across the TV screen while on fire. So maybe this is all my fault. She probably would have been fine with this, but I'm going to at least pretend for now that I'm a decent parent.
Too funny. My kid's 9 and he still cringes when it's too scary. He literally turns his body around and covers himself with a pillow.
One of my wife's formative movie-going experiences was at the drive-in with her parents. They thought she was asleep for the third feature, or the second feature, which was Poltergeist. She was not asleep for Poltergeist. She watched Poltergeist at 5-ish years old. Yeah.
That's awesome, though.
Yes, it has made her. It has led her to so many poor choices in life. Probably up to and including marrying me. But but no, we've got a whole list and we've got a whole attack plan figured out for how to introduce certain things. Like she started watching the new Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
The little person, young person Star Wars.
The
Rebels,
TV
I would
show?
say? Yeah, the TV show. And she's loving it, but so we've got we've got a whole somewhere I've got in a notebook written down somewhere like a whole all right, she can watch this at this age. We'll introduce this at this time. We'll introduce the movies in this order, not this order.
That's awesome. I think all parents should do that. That's really, really important.
I think it helps a lot if you know your kid and you know the things you want to introduce to your kid. I feel like a little forethought kind of helps things go a little more smoothly, I guess, Yeah. So you can be like, hey, remember when we watched whatever? Well, that didn't scare you. And this is just another puppet or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Brian would probably know more about that than I would. He's got much more experience introducing children to things.
I wouldn't even go say that. No.
She just recently watched. She's gotten on a Mary Poppins kick.
Oh hell yeah!
And both the old one, except the old one, she loses interest about 2 hours in, which is fine because that's when it starts to slow down and becomes about the dad. Who wants that? But she loves the new one, the Mary Poppins Returns. She just adores that one. But that ties back into one of her original obsessions, which was watching Hamilton constantly when it hit Disney. she loved Hamilton and would run around singing that she's not going to throw away her shot and all that stuff. And we got our little T-shirt that says that, and and she still loves Hamilton, but it's one of those things we have to limit watching, not because of causes for her, but because it makes both of us cry. So
honestly,
the parents are. George Washington is basically my wife's hero and favorite president, and she loves the guy that plays George Washington in that. The second half of that's a real downer. So I like to leave on a high note with, Daveed Diggs printing it up as Thomas Jefferson.
He is so good. He's so good.
He really is good, and it kind of bums me out that we're not going to get to watch the 4th season of Snowpiercer that's already been made because, I don't know, they think they could take money on a write-off for it. I figure at some point they'll run out of, property that they've got in the can, and they'll be like, all right, let's show it, because the writer strike and the SAG strike are going to continue on.
Have to release those shows because of the strike. I wonder if they'll release Batgirl.
That's a great question. I feel like at this point you're going to have to do something for content, right? There's going to be
there's so much that they still have to release, but
speaking of things that people have seen, this Scooby-Doo movie, I had no idea that it
Sweet segue.
I had no idea that it made so much money at the box office. That's crazy.
It was really, I think, in a lot of the stuff that I've seen about it, it really brought Scooby-Doo back, because Scooby-Doo, it was still popular, but it wasn't, one of the biggest kids properties at that time. And so it really kind of breathed new air into that franchise.
You also have to remember that at the time, Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. were at the peak of their popularity. Buffy had just finished its run, and they were a fairly new couple at the time, so it was kind of a big deal.
What an insane cast, too.
And Matthew Lillard was in so much, too. Yeah. They were all just
Brian
killing
knows
it.
a little bit about Sarah Michelle Gellar, because he and Jay watched, I don't even know how many episodes of Buffy. That was you, right? You did the Buffy show?
Yeah, 142 episodes plus bonus material. Yeah.
And that's all still out there on the internet. So
could be even more than that. Might be 242. I can't even remember anymore. 7 seasons worth.
It's quite a lot.
My old roommate was obsessed with Buffy, and I have never seen a single episode.
You should watch it this fall. It's like the perfect series to watch.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how I missed it. He legit watched it every single night, and I would come home from work and he'd be on the couch watching it, and then I'd go off and do something else. I never watched a whole episode of Buffy. Ever.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never watched a full episode of Buffy either.
You should.
Oh,
you're breaking our hearts.
Oh. I know. I will. I knew Sarah Michelle Gellar from, all the other stuff that she was in.
Yeah.
Buffy was like it was like the mashed potatoes to the Cruel Intentions steak that I was eating,
The Harvard man appetizer.
Nice. Oh man, digging deeply into the filmography of Sarah Michelle Gellar. That's impressive.
She has such an incredible filmography, and the amount of feminist characters that she's played it's so interesting to me. I love how she's played Daphne in this movie, and I have you guys seen the video where they're in the interview and she's talking about why she took this role and how Scooby-Doo wasn't for boys, it wasn't for girls, it was just cool for everyone, and Daphne was this really cool character, and then it cuts to Freddie Prinze Jr. and he goes, "It's a talking dog, man. What's not to like?"
They really nailed the talking dog too. If dogs could talk, it's Scooby-Doo for sure.
And weirdly enough, I have some qualms about the CGI in this that we'll talk about. But weirdly enough, the Scooby-Doo CGI is the one that works the best or bothers me the least. But we'll get to that right now as we segue into this plot summary that I wrote. So take it away, me. There are a lot of bands that break up for a lot of good reasons. Generally, egos are involved. Even the gang from Mystery Incorporated are no strangers to the clash of personalities. 2 years ago, Fred once again took all the glory and the rest of the gang had enough, going their separate ways. Like all broken up bands, the one thing that always works to reunite them is money. In this case, $10,000 from the mysterious owner of the Spooky Island Resort, issued individually to the Scooby Gang. They're all back in the same place, tasked with figuring out who or what is responsible for the weirdness on Spooky Island. As if the name Spooky Island wasn't a giveaway. But regardless, they're definitely not working together. If you believe the ghost story spun by the person playing Nagu Tuana, one of the horror actors, it's a curse placed on the island by its former inhabitants, who were displaced by the construction of the resort. Or maybe it's got something to do with venerable character actor Miguel A. Nunez Jr., who's up to some sort of voodoo shenanigans. The group individually decide to go exploring a shuttered haunted attraction and stumble upon a weird mind control facility. So maybe it's brainwashing and not voodoo? Except for the weird, strange pyramid puzzle box Daphne finds called the Demonitis. After separately nearly getting killed, the group decide to work together, put aside their differences for now, and solve the problem. Turns out it's not just a weirdo in a mask, but actual paranormal stuff. And the demons are taking over people's bodies and preparing to conquer the earth. Folks keep disappearing, then coming back all weird and strange, like how people who go to New Orleans come back talking like cartoon alligators. While searching for his friends, Shaggy discovers a tank of dodgy 2002 CGI containing the protoplasmic essences of all the visitors to Spooky Island. Turns out demons have been wearing people like disguises because the sun kills them. The key to their dark apocalypse ritual? A pure soul. And not a human soul. The soul of Scooby-Doo. Time for the gang to put together one of their classic convoluted plans to save the world. It all goes haywire because it's Scooby-Doo, but the gang managed to stumble, slip, and crash their way into foiling the plot all the same. Turns out, Montedivarius isn't a demon or Mr. Bean. He's a robot being piloted by none other than Scrappy-Doo? Scrappy does some evil shenanigans and begins himself using protoplasmic souls, and the gang have to work together once more to stop him and shrink him back down to his normal size. Obviously, they successfully do so. As the bad guys are hauled off to jail, Scrappy-Doo babbling all the way, Fred takes a back seat and lets Velma get credit for her plan for once. The gang's reunited, and off to their next adventure as credits roll. A lot of plot there for a fairly short movie. Lots of things happening. Lots of moving parts.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just excited to see Scrappy-Doo.
I love Scrappy. It makes me so sad that the internet hates him.
Well, after
nice
this, they
that
definitely hate him.
And that was nice that was the original voice of Scrappy-Doo.
Yeah.
To come back and reprise the role.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I am such a Scrappy-Doo defender. Like, I think this movie did him so dirty, and it's like not fair. He wouldn't do that. It's not him.
He wouldn't pee on Daphne?
He wouldn't.
Oh, I think
he's
would.
Nice.
He's just a little guy.
He's just a little guy.
I guess the movie definitely leaned into how much people hated him, though.
Yeah.
I love how he was introduced with every family has that one.
That was good.
So we talked a lot in the warm up about the cast of this movie, and I gotta say, man, they just top to bottom, they just knocked it out of the park with every single actor. Like, this is just
it's perfect.
A phenomenal assembly of people who know exactly what their role is, what they want to bring to the role, and what they're trying to get out of the character. And man, it's just really stellar work. Like, the casting department deserves a big garbage bag full of money for getting all these people to sign off on this project.
Yeah. And they all nailed the characters so well. And I forgot that I kind of forgot that Linda Cardellini played Velma, and she's been in so much, and I felt like fully just gave the character of Velma, like, she just fully embodied it, leaned into it super hard, because everything else I've seen her in, she's not that nerdy. I mean, like, the whole voice was different. She really, really did some great character acting. And Matthew Lillard too. And Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, he's actually voiced Shaggy post this movie in a bunch of other Scooby-Doo animations.
He does Scooby too, I think, in some of those.
Matthew Lillard like definitely took over that role in like the best, most graceful way he could, I think. And I think he's the only person that can play Shaggy until, you know, he wants to retire. He's so good at it. But everyone in this movie was spot on, and I think it's probably so hard to approach these characters because they're so beloved. But everyone did it so well. It was incredible.
And it's not just that you're like wrestling with a beloved character. You have to figure out a way to modernize a character that was created in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Without like changing the fundamental essence of the character. Like, you know, and everybody talks about Matthew Lillard and everybody talks about Linda Cardellini. But I feel like Sarah Michelle Gellar has the most thankless role and the most thankless character to basically have to figure out how to modernize a little bit. And I think the thing where they gave her, like, where she gets tired of being the damsel in distress and she goes out and she learns Kung Fu, I think that is a really funny choice and a very specific choice, because it's very much, she went out and learned Charlie's Angels Kung Fu, which I thought was really funny. It feels like a very specific way they would have updated that character for like 1978 after during the height of the Bruce Lee obsession that people were going through, and everyone started to do martial arts, and that became a thing that every character on a TV show had to know. Like, she 100%, they would have been like, oh, well, it can't be Velma. She's already got a thing. So it'll be Daphne. And then Daphne will learn how to karate chop people, and that will be her thing. And her and Scooby-Doo can have martial arts adventures.
I think that plays well with her role as Buffy as well. Buffy was a karate kung fu fighter as well, and so it kind of was like a nod to that character, bringing her in to play Daphne.
Totally. It's interesting too, because Daphne, like, she's never really been a damsel in distress, like, but I think the closer we got to the 90s, the Scooby-Doo films we were seeing then, where she was becoming like much more three-dimensional character. And then I think this movie just really cemented that and gave her sort of this new aspect that was really enjoyable. And you see it now. Daphne has really cool, like, she's always fighting. She's always standing up for herself in a lot of the remakes and the new films and the new TV shows. And so this movie, I think, had a huge impact on all of the Scooby content we've seen since it.
Now, was anyone else like me and fell for the angry trap of the Mindy Kaling Scooby-Doo thing?
I didn't, because you warned me beforehand, Ron. So I have not fallen into that trap.
The Velma series?
Yeah.
I have had no interest in it, so
I started it. It's definitely a different take, but I think it's interesting what she did with it. I don't know if I loved it, but
I watched the first 2 episodes and I was furious, and I immediately texted my TV editor and I was like, "Oh my god!"
It was really, really weird.
I was like, "Did you watch this? It's insane." And he was like, "You fell for their trap. They want people to watch it and be angry and write about it and get more people to watch it. So, and you fell for it."
That's so true.
I just don't know that I care to dig into one of the characters alone, right? To dive into them. I'd rather it be the gang. That's what Scooby-Doo is. I don't need a Scooby-only series. I don't need a Shaggy-only series.
They're not meant to be solo artists.
No.
I think I'm gonna go back into like Scooby-Doo lore again, but like it's really interesting because I think it was back in the 80s or 90s, there was a spin-off series that was just Scooby and Shaggy and sometimes Daphne. And that's when we saw Scrappy a lot as well. And it was very strange. But it was also, that one I think worked, but I think there's sort of been recently kind of a push to look at the other characters more. And I think Scooby-Doo doesn't really work without Scooby-Doo. And I think this is like most prevalent in one of the newer Scooby-Doo movies where it focused more on Fred, Velma, and Daphne. And it was good, but it always just kind of felt like something was missing because Scooby and Shaggy were always in the background. And I think that's such an essential, I think they are like the most essential characters to Scooby-Doo. And if you don't focus on them, then it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, I agree. Like, his name's above the title for the reason. His name is the title for a reason. And I feel like, Hanna-Barbera knew where their bread was buttered and wouldn't have lost sight of that.
I mean, there's a reason why they made the series, like 50 more times with a bunch of different groups. They all had a Scooby,
Yeah. The one I remember best is Jabberjaw.
Jabberjaw is really fun. I love Jabberjaw.
Is a lot of fun, and especially when they all got roped in together to do the Laugh Olympics. That was such a very specific 70s
Those are thing. The best. And there's also a really good episode of Mystery Inc. where all of the mascots get together, and it's really fun.
Oh, that sounds great. I'm gonna have to dig that up. We're going to start the early 70s Scooby-Doo things with all the guest stars. We're going to start on that soon.
Oh, yes, those are the best.
Those are all up on Pluto, which is my second favorite after Tubi. But yeah, we're going to start those because I'm like, Meg needs to learn about the Harlem Globetrotters. She needs to learn who Tim Conway is and Don Knotts and all these guys.
Batman. That was really educational for me when I was a kid, too.
That's a good point. The Harlem Globetrotters Scooby-Doos were my favorite episodes as a kid and now.
They're so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this will be great because it'll give me a gateway into showing her Vincent Price movies later on.
Yes.
We get up to Vincent Van Gogh.
That is like the best ever. Like, I was so happy that they put that in there. And I think they remade the Scooby-Doo. There's a new version of the Scooby-Doo where they do like newer celebrities on it. It just came out. It's really fun.
I know they did a couple with the WWE.
Yeah. They've got one with Elvira and Bill Nye too, and that's really fun.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
That's fun. You had me at Elvira.
Yeah, exactly.
It got better. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good team up. Yeah. But I think also, sorry, to go back to the actors, I think Freddie Prinze Jr. also was amazing as Fred. I think he brought like such a cool perspective to the role. And I think we owe Ryan Gosling's Ken a lot to him.
I will agree with you on that, Corey. I think we do. Wow. I didn't even think, and I just saw Barbie a few days ago.
Literally, like, he walked so Ken could run. Like,
yeah, it's true. I'm with you on that.
I think
100%.
Freddie Prinze Jr. is so good in everything, but this just like, I think he really was able to just have as much fun as possible, and it's so clear.
Yeah. I think they all did. I'm sure they all grew up watching Scooby-Doo. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of the movie?
Oh my God, totally.
I forgot Isla Fisher was in this as
love
Mary
her.
Jane.
She's so funny.
Yeah. I was like, wow, that face looks familiar. She looks so different. And I just watched Wedding Crashers recently too.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, wait, I know who that is. How bizarre. I totally forgot.
She's awesome in this. The plot twist with her is great.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
My favorite is when she's on the bike and her face gets all distorted and Scooby's looking at her and she's like stretching it into place, and then she smiles at him and he's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Just like leans into Shaggy on the table.
The creature effects too for the time are like really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like the way the creatures look. I don't like the way the Big Bucket of Souls protoplasms looks.
It's so unsettling. It's so weird.
It makes me very uncomfortable. It
reminds me of Casper. Do you remember the Christina Ricci Casper? Yeah. The demon things or whatever they're called. Have any of you ever played the game Until Dawn? It's like a long form storyline
but I've heard it's
video
great.
game. So there are monsters in there called the Wendigos that look very similar to these. And that video game came out many years after this movie did. I don't know if they took any inspiration from it, but the second I saw them, I was like, those look really familiar.
Interesting.
Obviously, this came out like 15 years before that game did, but yeah, they're really just weird looking. I liked it.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about how we feel about the later attempts by the cartoon to separate the characters. I'm really glad that they didn't dwell too much on the gang being separated. They really just established they were separated pretty strongly and then figured out a way to get them back together immediately. And also, I laughed quite a bit at them trying to sneak out of the van where the guys literally knocking on the side of the van like they were going to get away with their grocery
Did you
bags
love
full of food.
the homage to the potentially smoking up in the van
Yeah.
that they're just grilling
So
burgers?
It's so good.
I love that.
It is both a great homage and it is 100% in character for them to be like cooking something on an open flame in the back of a gas-filled vehicle.
Yep.
Because
It's so good.
that was a great touch. And man, Matthew Lillard is going to get all kinds of praise just for his physical comedy alone.
Oh yeah.
The way he moves so much like a cartoon character. It's great. And he's got such
He
great
doesn't
energy.
scream too, though. Like he's always so good.
And
I
he's
also
so
like the
tall and
character-
lanky.
Yeah.
I like the character development with Daphne trying to check in 7 carry-on bags.
Yeah.
That was
As
pretty
she
good.
should. Yeah.
Did you guys notice going into costuming for a minute, her carry-on bags looked like purple Louis Vuitton
Yeah.
bags, but when you look closer, instead of an LV, it's just a little D.
I love that.
Oh, I didn't see that part. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a great
Yeah.
touch.
I know. I thought they did a fantastic job with the costuming on this because I feel like they stayed really true to the costumes and it feels almost anachronistic because they're still the same 70s style costumes. But this movie being made in the early aughts was still a lot of people, that they were in those cocaine chic bodies where everyone was uber skinny.
Mhm.
And so clothes fell on them similarly as like in a similar fashion as like semi-baggy clothes. And those like flared jeans were also kind of a thing in those like late 90s era, early aughts. And so it felt when I first started watching this, like, oh, that's cool. They kept the same 70s clothes, but it's still taking place in like 2002. But then you look a little closer and it is just a 2002 version of the 70s clothes, but it's so close that, with the exception of Velma, I feel like Velma is always just going to be Velma in her outfit. But that's okay because people still dress like that. It's totally fine. I appreciated the attention to detail when it came to that kind of thing, to all the costumes and outfitting the whole cast.
I knew a lot of people in 2001 and 2002 who dressed like Shaggy.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, usually people who sold weed to friends of mine were dressed like Shaggy.
So Shaggy.
Yeah,
It's pretty on point.
and the Van Dyke, the goatee without the mustache, that was a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people looked like that, man. I thought it was I thought the costuming was nice because like Lindsay said, they figured out a way to slightly modernize it or to get them out of the very specific outfits that we've seen them in into things that look also like what those characters would wear. Like we see Fred later, he's just got the blue on blue, but he's still got the ascot, and they make the fun joke about his ability to accessorize, which I made me laugh.
And then when his soul is switched out for the monsters, and he's in the classic early 2000s board shorts that are just a little too long.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he had, what were those things called? The shell necklaces
the puka shells.
Yeah,
Puka
the puka
shells,
shell
yeah.
necklaces that
It's so typical.
everyone wore.
They still do.
Yeah, I probably had one.
I've still got one somewhere.
I loved how they changed their fashion when they got like possessed by the monsters.
Yeah,
where it
that
was
was
like
cool.
still sort of them, but different.
Velma lost her glasses.
Yeah.
And had cleavage for the first time.
Orange shirt,
Yeah.
But it was nice that they kind of stuck to their brand, even when they were inhabited by demons.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice
So
of
we
the
get
demons
them
to really think about their aesthetic.
Yeah.
We get them on the airplane. They realize everyone else is there. We get our first good shot of Scooby-Doo parading around in human clothes, which always makes me laugh. That grandma outfit was very funny to me.
It's so good.
I got a big laugh out of that because the thing I appreciated most about this movie is no one bought that was grandma. They all saw a giant dog walking around in clothes, and you get reaction shots of all the people in the airport just like goggle-eyed and staring, mouths agape, as a dog shambles by, moving like Tarman from Return of the Living Dead. So we get them on the plane, we meet Mary Jane, and then we fly our way to Spooky Island. Now, question for the room. I'm sure that everyone would go to Spooky Island, correct?
It's my dream. Lifelong dream.
100%. Yeah. I don't know what sort of amenities they have other than
doesn't matter.
People dancing in grass skirts and stuff, but I would 100% go to Spooky Island right now.
Shaggy said it was all you can eat, so it must be some kind of all-inclusive spring break resort.
It looked fun.
It did look fun, but boy, that crowd of people getting off of the airplane are the most 2002 people I've seen since 2002.
Hey,
that's what I love about it.
They were jamming out to Sugar Ray, baby.
Yeah, they were.
and
the soundtrack on this movie was crazy.
Yeah. And my favorite was the guy who gets picked up and thrown by his old friend he's known since he was 3, who had all the 2002 spikes.
It's Corey.
Yeah.
Since we were kids.
Which that made me laugh because I definitely had that hair for a while.
Yeah, the hair was on point.
Man, and then later on we get Sugar Ray to show up, and that was great. But then we meet the owner of the resort, played by none other than Rowan Atkinson, who is just great in everything. I 100% in the bag for him. And he shows up and he's dressed crazy, exactly like somebody who would run a spooky themed island resort would dress. And I love that they introduced him by having him like crammed into some sort of weird puppet robot monster thing. So you get right away you get the feeling, hey, there's something off about this dude. And one of the things that Scooby-Doo the show does so well is they set up a few different people who could potentially be your red herring, and they set up a few different people who could potentially be, the guy who gets unmasked at the end because he's the screaming ghoul of Horror Town or whatever. And I thought the movie did a great job of like introducing these people and making them each a little suspicious in their own way.
No, totally, yeah.
Well, I like how Fred at one point just comes right out and says, "Here are our suspects," and he names all 3 while he's talking to the Rowan Atkinson character, or his character, and he's just like, "Yeah, well, no,
you're
offense.
a suspect.
You just creep me out." So There you go.
And that's a perfectly acceptable answer to
Yeah.
Monteverde. He's just like, okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he runs Spooky Island, right? It's kind of his job to creep people out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
like it would be
takes
it would be concerning if he didn't creep people out because that's his whole thing. But yeah, I 100% loved the introduction of that character, and we immediately get Nagu and who's the other guy whose name escapes me. I keep wanting to call him Zardoz, and that's wrong. Zarkos. We get our immediate goon and our immediate, there's something wrong with this guy. He's weird and creepy. But I like the fact that Velma, being Velma, is able to say, oh, this would be spooky, except for the fact that I see your projectors here, here, and here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fun use of that dynamic that these characters have to each give them their own strength, so to speak. Everybody's got a thing that they're good at in this movie, and that really works. I really like that a lot about the show, and I really like it a lot in the movie.
I love the fact that the guy is being creepy and then he sits down to play this beautiful piano piece, all while listening in on the conversations to hear if they've caught anything on.
He's a good goon.
That's great. That was great.
He's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny, and that's really goes to. And the thing I like about that is that feels 100% like what would happen at a resort, because all the performers would wear many different hats. At least the ones I've known who've worked in that thing, they would always be like, "Oh, well, I wait here I'm the waiter during the day, and at night I play piano here, or I sing here, and then at night I'm dancing over here, or I'm helping out in the kitchen or whatever." Everybody, this is clearly a very intense resort, and it has very intense, very large production numbers, but all those guys are also waiters.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to wear their different hats, and I like that. I like that we get that, and then I love that we get. And I know that logically, this is probably not a choice that James Gunn at this time would have the power to make, but I love that Miguel Nunez shows up, and it's just like doing voodoo in a hut.
It just randomly, yeah.
But it always makes me happy when he shows up in a thing, and he is extremely funny in his interactions with Velma, with Daphne.
Oh my God, he's so funny. To this day, I always see that meme that's like purple. It's a fall color.
Yeah, he's a good character. I love that he's sacrificing a chicken that needs to be cooked.
Yeah. And salting
that chicken's
it.
already dead. What gave it away? The fact that it has no head? They did a good job with him.
It's just another little sign that the casting department in this movie deserves more praise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing
for this. And they knew exactly what they're doing. They got the perfect dude to play this role, because he never quite, at least to me, never quite feels like he's a suspect, but it feels like he knows more of what's going on than anyone else around him.
Yeah.
And he's turned to voodoo to protect himself from whatever really bad thing is happening on the island. And that's how you know it's going to be something really bad. Because when your options are, the thing on the island or turning to voodoo, voodoo is not usually the number one thing you go for.
Yeah.
Well, I don't anyway. I can't speak for Brian.
I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when they're like, phone call for Mr. Do, and Melvin Do comes up.
Yes.
And then at the end,
Melvin Do?
Me? Don't you mean Melvin?
Yes. I love that.
It's
That was such a great callback too.
Guys, wait. Can we talk about the fart in the night costume for a minute?
Oh my God.
Before it came up, I haven't seen this movie in a number of years. I honestly don't remember the last time I saw it. So I'm watching it with my Brian, And right before it happens, he goes, "Oh my gosh, this is my favorite part." And I was
Okay.
like, okay. And then it happens, and I laughed so hard. And then he rewound it to watch it again.
The best part of that whole sequence is not just the fart; it's the fact that Scooby-Doo chuckles afterward.
And it just lights the little like torch on fire. You get the little poof. I mean, look, farts are funny at any age. So that joke is going to kill whether you are 4 years old or 400 years old. It doesn't matter. It's funny, period.
Yeah,
it feels like it just feels like an updated version of how they would have normally. They work in so many of the classic Scooby-Doo bits in this.
Yeah.
And it just feels like an updated version of something that would have happened, like, you know, in the original series. Somebody would have been wearing a suit of armor, and, like, you know, Scooby would have stolen a sandwich and be eating the sandwich when he's supposed to be, you know, like an unattended suit of armor or something. and they work that in. They've got the classic hiding under a suitcase later. They really... they really go to great pains to put together all of these like almost Easter eggs or expected things for fans of the show, and give them just a little bit of a twist or a little bit of an update.
Yeah.
And, you know, I gotta say that the script, the James Gunn and Craig Titley script, is just absolutely top notch. They jam so much in there, but it doesn't feel like pandering. It feels like this is this is organic to the world of the cartoon to me.
Totally.
Can we talk about the brainwash facility? And how did they come up with the skits and teaching them how to say all this jive talk?
It's so weird.
It's, yo, dog, it's okay. No worries. Hey, did you... It's like, what the heck?
That is such 2002 jive talk too. Like,
anytime you meet a white person that uses AAVE, you know that they've been brainwashed.
This too, it also feels like an older generation's view of what their younger generational counterparts taught,
Totally.
like how they speak. So I feel like that, because you only hear the words you don't understand. And it's like, that's not real English. Well, it's our version of real English. So,
Yeah.
But that, I feel like that is someone, those videos was someone saying, like, this is how the young kids talk. I say stuff all the time, and I get told not to say that because, you know. It's fine. I don't care. I'm not above it. I'll use sus in a sentence.
I feel like I
like to stay up to date on slang.
Yeah.
That feels like creative notes from the studio that got worked back into the project. Like, they're like, they need to talk more like the kids today, you know.
Yeah.
With the yo-yo dogs and all that stuff. They need to talk like that. And they were like, oh, you want that in the movie? Okay. We'll have Fred say some of that later, and it's going to sound worse than the fart contest.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to it's going to fall with just the most obnoxious thud, and then you'll learn about it.
But I think about it now, like the way I talked back in like 95 to 2005, and it's like there was one year where like everything was the bomb. That was the bomb. That was so the bomb. Did you see that thing? That was the bomb. And that's just all we said for like a year. Everything.
Bomb.com.
Yeah. And, you know, and then you get off of it and find something else. But that was so funny. God.
That was hell of the bomb.
Hella.
Saying stuff was the bomb was the
I
bomb.
still say hella.
I do too. It's so horrible, and I'm trying. I'm trying so hard to talk like the 42-year-old man that I am, but I guess I technically am, because I'm using the slang I used back then.
Yeah.
Still to this day. But you know, it's such an uphill battle for those of us who are old to adapt to changing times.
Do you say, like, Ron, repeat after me? This movie slaps.
Oh, geez.
Oh.
Corey's
cap.
cringing. She's like, please don't ever say that.
Every time Jay says that, I just cringe. Dude, that
Does Jay
slaps.
say that a lot? I don't think I've ever.
He texts a lot.
He texted a lot. Yeah, Jay clearly works around the young people and has picked up on all their.
He's not even here to
terminology.
defend himself.
He'll get a kick out of it when he listens back.
Yeah, he'll be greatly amused by that because it's really true. It's very much a how do you do fellow kids Steve Buscemi meme thing. Yeah, but I enjoyed the way that the demons are they demons?
I think so.
Yeah, they come from a demonitis, right?
Yes. Okay, yeah. So I enjoyed the way that was the way that they tried to teach the demons how to behave around normal people. That
like made so much sense for them too, because they were, pretending to be kids. So it's like, of course.
Yeah, while not having much understanding of the way kids actually are, I thought that was a nice touch. They're definitely studio executives.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What's next? Can we talk about the body switching for a minute?
Oh my
Sure.
God. So that sequence is so funny.
I think that might have been one of my favorites. That was, I think my favorite was Shaggy and Daphne's body. And he goes, oh, Daphne, what's wrong? Don't you ever eat?
Yeah, that was good. Or Fred, like, I can look at myself naked.
Oh, yeah, that was so good. And they all played it so well. Like, what a classic trope. And it's so, I feel like it has to be so fun for them to play those other characters just for a second.
I really wonder if that was originally in the script or if they were just so good at impersonating each other that they thought they should just throw it in. Because they're so good. It gets crazy the way that they're physically able to like catch on to each other's mannerisms and stuff with it. It's really cool.
I'm sure at that point they'd been shooting with each other long enough so that they probably made fun of each other all the time, like I bet they just did it goofing off backstage or not backstage. Yeah. Cause this is a film. You know what I mean though.
Yeah.
But yeah, God, that was so funny. And then of course, Velma comes in with we're just going to keep switching until we're finally in the right bodies. Just let it happen.
And eventually it all kind of works out for everyone. But that is a very funny moment, and it's a very easy way to kind of shorthand in how the possession thing works and where the people go and how to solve the problem. I really enjoyed the demon effects. We talked about that already, but I really enjoyed the gremlin-y way that they behaved when they were exposed to sunlight, and how they freak out like it's burning them or that it hurts. And I thought that was fun rather than them just disintegrating immediately. It was kind of weirdly enough, it made me think of the Paul Rubens performance in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, when he gets staked and he's just literally rolling around for like 20 minutes, groaning in pain and mugging to the camera. It kind of felt like that because you get the ones who were like rubbing their arms or like holding their leg like it hurts, or I thought that was a very fun way too.
It's a good callback.
Yeah.
That's one of the best scenes in that whole movie.
And then they, after they catch fire, they burst into the green fog and the glitter and kind of disappear.
Yeah, it's so good. And I like that they made it a combination of like real monsters, but also a man in a mask, sort of. Like, I thought that was really interesting the way that they did that.
Yeah, because Scooby was always just a man in a mask. Like there was never anything real about it. But I forgot. Again, it's been so long since I've seen this movie. I forgot that there was still a man in the mask. So
Yeah.
when was it Fred or Shaggy? So who called out that there was a mask to Velma, I think.
I think it was Fred who
I think
saw the little seam.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I got so excited because that was always such a fun part of all of the Scooby cartoons was the big reveal. And that was cool. What a twist. What a twist.
Oh my
Scrappy
God.
Doo.
Well, I don't know. It's really interesting because the 90s films that we see, like Zombie Island and Witch's Ghost, those have real monsters. And so I think there was sort of a shift towards the movies having like real monsters and the TV show having the masks. And this combined it perfectly. But then to also not only have it be a man in a mask, but then not a man in a mask, but a dog in a mask, like in this crazy robot suit was like so out of pocket. And no one could have guessed that. It's so good.
It's very Men in Black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like twist on top of twist on top of twist. It's like, oh, so you think you know where this is going? No, it's not just a guy in a mask. It's a robot. Oh, you think you know what's up with the robot? No, you don't. Let's look inside the chest. And there you go. There's the real villain of the movie, and some would say the real villain of the franchise, Scrappy-Doo. I'm not one of those people, but they are out there, and I'm sure we will hear from them on social media.
Yeah.
I was about to say don't at us, but really you're adding Ron, so go for it.
Yeah, it's fine.
You can at me and I'll debate it all day. Like,
yeah, that's at Gory Corey on X or whatever it's called now.
it's still Twitter.
It's always Twitter.
Elon Musk is stupid.
You'll definitely hear back about that now.
Yeah. And what about
Let's
it?
see.
Like,
I mean,
and
you're
people
not
that
wrong,
don't think he's stupid are probably also stupid. So
again, you're not wrong. So I'll also, and I might edit this little sidebar out. There was no way he was ever going to fight Zuckerberg because
oh my God,
Zuckerberg has the dead eyes of a serial killer, and he would have eaten that man alive, literally.
He might be a robot or an alien. Zuckerberg, I mean. Elon Musk could be too, but Zuckerberg definitely.
Zuckerberg's just like, he's such a strange little guy. Like, it's really funny because anytime someone does edits of anything he says or like deep fakes him, it's so believable. Like, I have no idea what this man has or hasn't said because it's always so believable.
Did you hear the most recent thing he got into with his home country in South Africa, where there was some group that was singing like "Kill the White People" or something like that? They were chanting this song, and Elon Musk like tweeted the president of South Africa saying, "Are you going to do something about this?" And the guy who was leading, the guy who was leading the rally says, "Who is this guy? He looks like some illiterate." It just made me laugh so hard.
He's so real
like
for that.
Illiterate.
He does though. Like that's so true.
Yeah, he does. Well, he kind of looks like the human version of one of the monsters from this movie because he's all
He looks like he could be like a dog and a robot. You know.
He looks kind of like looks a little bit like the protoplasmic Scrappy-Doo monster at the end of this movie. He's got that kind of weird.
Yeah, he does. That was another really weird. We didn't even talk about that. Was Scrappy-Doo like growing to full power? That was crazy.
That was unsettling. Like that was that was some weird Cronenberg body horror they snuck into this thing.
James Gunn really did everything he could, like, to make this movie as weird as possible.
Props though at the end when he's shrinking back down, they kept his head so large and it was dragging on the ground as it was shrinking. That was hilarious.
So
that was definitely funny. They do so well giving physical attributes to the CGI creatures in this.
Yeah. And it's
Like
also like the CGI doesn't look like it holds up well enough because it's so cartoonish.
That's the thing. It looks like a cartoon,
Yeah.
so it doesn't fall into the uncanny valley thing. Like Scooby-Doo doesn't look like an actual Great Dane. He looks like Scooby-Doo. He looks
Yeah.
like how you would want Scooby-Doo to look. All the monsters don't look like, xenomorphs. They look like the monsters that would be on Scooby-Doo. Scrappy-Doo looks like Scrappy-Doo, except for when he's the big giant mutant Scrappy-Doo. But even
Then
that
he's
kind of looks
something.
like if you blasted the real Scrappy-Doo with the laser from Howard the Duck and he turned into the Jeffrey Jones monster at the end of that movie. That's kind of how he looks. But yeah, I really enjoyed. I didn't necessarily like the character assassination of Scrappy-Doo by the coward James Gunn.
It's so wrong. And he never recovered from it either. Like people still bring that up always. Like they're always using that against him.
I mean, I feel like people. The reason why that happened is because people hated Scrappy-Doo anyway.
Yeah.
At least enough people hated Scrappy-Doo. I always thought he
It's
was
not
kind of funny
fair.
myself.
He is, and he's just a little guy. Like he just tries his best and it's really cute. It's so sad that everyone hates him.
I
And it's
never
like every
hated
small
him.
dog I've ever interacted with.
Yeah, exactly.
And Scooby-Doo is every big dog I've ever interacted with. And I did not realize fully because I grew up with dogs, but I never like had a dog until November. So less than a year, I have been a dog person. And I was not a dog person before this. And we have a large breed dog. And she makes like the same facial expressions that they have Scooby-Doo make. It was so spot on. And every time, and she was in the room while we were watching Scooby-Doo. And every time Scooby did something ridiculous, like we would both just look at our dog and be like, yeah, that tracks. That's that's accurate. That's a thing. If this doggy could talk, that is what she would be saying and doing.
I didn't even think about that, but it's so true.
Yeah, like they're all just goofy. They're goofy. And I mean, I've known a lot of big dogs. I'm sure there are exceptions to the rule, but like, and I know Scooby-Doo's a Great Dane, but Great Danes are goofy too. Like they just don't understand how large they are. And it's so funny.
Yeah, they don't understand how large they are and how clumsy they can be. And
and Scooby-Doo is large and clumsy.
And it's really weird that we've drawn this parallel between a cartoon dog and actual dogs. And yet it makes perfect sense. Like everything we've talked about for Scooby and for Scrappy-Doo 100% tracks with the behavior of real dogs. And that feels weird to me. That
it is. I never even thought about that.
Because I've the dogs I've usually had have been small dogs, and they're all megalomaniacal little monsters, even the nice ones. So that that and always spoiling for a fight with something that could literally eat him is the hallmark of my small dog.
Yeah. And big dogs usually have, or at least the gentle giant breeds, right? They have zero prey drive. Now, Brian, you have corgis, am I correct? So you have cute little corgi butt dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think corgis are scrappy. They're like the exception to the rule. Are they scrappy? Really?
Corgis are interesting. They're like a cat and a dog in one. But I've got a one male who's on the large size of a male corgi, which is between 25 and 35 pounds. So he's about 36 pounds. And I have one that's the runt of his family who's 25 pounds. The one that's 25 pounds, he's one feisty little son of a bitch. He's got little man syndrome, and he will just bring that gremlin out in him at any time he wants, and it sounds like he's going to rip the other dog apart.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, he's a little feisty one. The other one's a lot more calm. He's just kind of like, get the hell off me, and things like that. But yeah, they can be pretty scrappy.
That makes sense. Like, because weren't they bred to be like herding dogs?
They're herding dogs. Yep.
Yeah. So that's probably why.
But my little one, we call him the kitty corgi, because he literally sits on top of the couch furniture, stares out windows like a cat would do, acts like a cat all the time. It's really funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
It's the
And then
best of both worlds. You get a dog and a cat.
Yeah.
Well,
I've got 92-pound Cane Corso, whose breed was bred to hunt bears. And one of my cats and one of my cats, well, I have 2 cats, and she just wants to be friends with them. That's all she wants. That's the only thing in the whole world that she wants. And she'll get a little close, and they'll give her an inch and she'll take a mile situation, and then they'll hiss at her, meow, and she's like, I'm sorry. Are you okay? Can we still be friends? It's like, dude, you could literally snap them in half at any point, but she is so beta. Like she just wants everyone to love her. And she thinks, like, if you're not telling her she's a good girl and petting her and loving her all the time, she just thinks you're mad at her.
Oh.
So she's definitely Scooby, though. She'll eat pretty much anything. And, just wants to be around her people.
Do you think that the choice of Scooby-Doo was made out of malice by Scrappy-Doo, or because Scooby-Doo really is the most pure soul of the group?
I think it's because he's the most pure soul.
I think so too. Yeah,
that just makes so much sense.
Yeah, he is the
He's
most
just
pure soul.
Pure loyalty, pure kindness, pure goodness.
Yeah,
Not much in terms of bravery, but with the proper motivation, he can also.
You
be
know
very
what though?
brave.
He is brave because he always pulls through, no matter what.
yeah.
That's true. That's a very good point.
I think Shaggy would be like the second most pure soul, though.
Yeah.
And I think that is why that those two work together so well, and why those two kind of serve as the heart of the movie. They're the ones we follow throughout the whole thing, right? It's Scooby and Shaggy. And it's not necessarily just because they're the two most popular characters, although I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. But they're the two characters who, everybody likes them. They don't have any malfeasance in them. There's not really any badness on the other ones either. But they all have, Fred takes the glory, and Daphne's a little vain, and Vilma's a little resentful. They're all established as having, character flaws. And I don't think eating a giant sandwich is really a character flaw.
No.
Yeah, it's interesting because you'd think that would make them not relatable or not good characters, but I feel like I know so many people that are like Shaggy in real life, and it just makes him like he's just a great character, and I'm never tired of him,
Yeah, he's just like a good dude.
Yeah.
And I feel like that has retroactively made everybody feel like Matthew Lillard's just a good dude.
He really seems like it.
He really seems like it. And it kind of retroactively makes me like his character more in Scream too, because even though we know he's one of the killers in Scream, spoiler for a 20-year-old movie, plus-year-old. But
I love him in Scream though, because even though he's bad, he's so funny.
Oh.
And it's just always you can't even hate him.
I don't think there's a single thing that I've seen Matthew Lillard in that I haven't liked.
Yeah.
Scream included. SLC Punks, if you guys have seen that.
Oh,
so good in that movie.
Yep.
I saw that movie back when I had a mohawk, so I was in the bag for him.
As you should.
That's awesome.
I used to be fun. But
You're
yeah,
still
this
fun,
movie
Ron.
is-
You're doing Film Strip Pod.
I'm fun
So
in
true.
a different way.
You could get a mohawk again. Who's stopping you?
No, I can't because the back of my head is, but the hair on the back of my head is falling out, so it's going to be a
Mm,
mohawk with a missing piece in it.
that could be the new style.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
just I'll just do a reverse mohawk and tell people it's shave the middle and keep the sides and tell people it's a deliberate choice and not just because I'm old.
Just tell him you're Hawk.
Yeah. Well. All right. So we get to the end of the movie. Scrappy-Doo shrinks down. He gets thrown into a dog carrier, which I had a good laugh at that. The first time they treat him like a dog is to throw him in a crate. Excuse me. And then we get to the end of our movie, and Fred, rather than taking glory for himself, exhibits some character growth and lets Velma step in front of the cameras and let people know that she was the brains behind the operation. And then the gang is all reunited back together. So everybody gets kind of a happy ending. People, all the characters learn a lesson. They grow, they change, they realize that together they are more than the sum of the parts. And I thought that was a very nice ending.
It is. It wraps it up in a nice little bow.
Yeah.
Well, obviously setting up for future sequels because
Mm-hmm.
that's what you do.
We'll
Well,
see how
the
long
sequel's
Fred's
awesome.
a nice guy, though.
Yeah.
Vanity is a bitch.
Vanity, thy name is Fred.
But yes, speaking as the Fred of this group, what with my ascot that you can't see because my beard's in the way. We get to the part of the show where we give our final thoughts, recommendations, and our popcorn ratings on Scooby-Doo. For anyone who's not familiar, we rate the movies on a scale from an extra large to an extra small popcorn. You can add modifiers like extra butter, chocolate covered peanuts,
Holy burnt.
wholly burnt, stale, 3-day-old, straight out of the garbage bag that they keep it in the office when they recycle the popcorn. Tell us they don't, but we know they do because I've known enough people who've worked in movie theaters to know that, yeah, that happens.
I've seen it.
But yes, so to lead off the final thoughts segment, Corey, what are your final thoughts on Scooby-Doo?
My final thoughts is that this is like the best way that they possibly could have remade it and made it live action, and it just totally brings the cartoon to life. I think it's so amazing. I think everyone that's in it is awesome, and it's just a really fun, good time. I think I would give it a large with all the toppings, but not an extra large because of what it did to Scrappy. I feel like it's just not, it did not do him justice. But besides that, I think it's great.
Thank you. Brian?
You know, there's so many things that can go wrong when you take a movie from a cartoon and bring it to life and live action. I mean, if you look at the Ninja Turtle movies from the 90s, they're okay, but they totally don't do the cartoons justice. This one does the cartoons way more justice, and it's so well done. They stay true to the characters. They stay true to the plot of what Scooby-Doo is. And that's why I think this is so enjoyable. So this is one that we've watched for years, having kids. Every kid's grown up with Scooby and watched Scooby. So I don't know. I've probably seen this 30, 40 times. And I love it every time. I give it a large popcorn. I think it's a fantastic movie.
I'm going to roll in here with the hat trick. I think it deserves a large popcorn as well, with the butter and the salt and all the good stuff, maybe even some extra butter. I think it really holds up. I loved it when I first saw it in the theater back in 2002. It is even funnier now as an adult because there are so many things that I missed the first time. Highly recommend going back and watching it if you get a chance, whether you have kids or not. It is so fun. And we already went on our tangent about all of the similarities between the doggies. But I don't know. It's just such a fun watch. I enjoyed it. I think everybody else will enjoy it too. Large popcorn.
And I'm not going to vary from the theme of tonight's theme. I'm going to go with a large popcorn, a large Shaggy style popcorn. So it's going to have chocolate syrup, capers, raw garlic, and
Anchovies.
Peanut butter. It's going to have all the weird toppings that Shaggy would like on top of his popcorn. So, but yeah, large popcorn. I really can't add or argue with anything anybody said. It's a great update of the cartoon. It keeps the spirit of the thing while modernizing it. The characters feel like the characters should. The characters look and act like the characters should. The performances are just top notch. Can't say enough good about Matthew Lillard. Can't say enough good about Linda Cardellini or Sarah Michelle Gellar or Freddie Prinze Jr. Just top to bottom, everybody understands the assignment is a phrase that's overused a lot these days, but everybody 100% knew what they were there to do, how to do it, how to make it work, how to keep the original characters alive while also modernizing it. So yeah, large popcorn all the way. So this, there are very few times when we've had 4 people in agreement this much, and I think this is one of those times. So, and this movie definitely earns the large popcorn status. So, before we go to our closing, Corey, do you have anything else you would like to plug at the end of the show that you haven't already plugged?
Sure. You can follow me at Gory Corey Horror on Twitter or _Gory Corey _ on Instagram, and I have a blog, gorycorey.com, where I post all things horror. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, do check it out. It's great. Corey's awesome.
Thank you.
100% the best. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Every time Corey's on the show, Jay and I are always left talking about how much fun we had.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. I always have so much fun on this show too.
So now I'll get to our part of the closing. You can follow the show's social media at FilmstripPod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I've made a concerted effort to post a lot of crap on Facebook, so please go like it and follow it or whatever. I don't know what you do with Facebook, honestly. I've never bothered to learn. But from there, you will find announcements about upcoming shows and our back catalog shows and a link to our Letterboxd page, which will, once again, contain our entire list of reviews when I finally get around to fixing it. Go to filmstrippodcast.com to link to our Anchor FM distribution site, or you can find us on your podcast platform of choice, Apple, Spotify, Google, etc. Wherever pods are casted, you can cast our pod there. Please share the show, and if you can, leave us a positive review as it helps other people find the podcast. For Lindsay and Brian and our guest Corey, I'm Ron. Thank you for listening to Film Strip.
Thank you for listening to Film Strip. You can find more episodes on our website, filmstrippodcast.com. The Film Strip theme music is produced and performed by Frozen Lake 121. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.